All right, so I just found out something that's going to change how I remember the 2026 Stanley Cup run forever, and it may change your perspective forever too. So, Caniacs, you watched Seth Jarvis lead this team in goals with 32 goals in the regular season this year. He obviously had game winners in the playoffs. He had the overtime hero against Vegas in the Cup final. All right, so Seth Jarvis was everywhere. We know and love Seth Jarvis. What you didn't know was that he was playing the whole time with a torn rotator cuff and a torn labrum in his shoulder. He didn't just play through it, or maybe you knew it because it talked about it a little bit, but most of us forgot. He didn't just play through it, he played through it for 2 full seasons. And on Friday, Eric Tulsky finally told us the story. So let's start with what we found out this week. Seth Jarvis just underwent shoulder surgery in late June. The procedure was to repair a torn labrum and a torn rotator cuff. The recovery timeline is roughly 4 to 6 months. All right, so we're obviously all hoping that it's going to be on the shorter end of that. But when you think about it, it's like, all right, star player gets hurt, surgery at the end of the season. Happens all the time, more than it should. We don't want anybody getting injured. But here's the part that you got to stop and think about. This injury isn't from this year, it's from the 2023-2024 season. That means Jarvis played the entire 2024-2025 regular season with torn shoulder. He played the 2024-2025 playoff run with a torn shoulder. Then he played the entire 2025-2026 regular season with a torn shoulder. Then he played the 19 playoff games this year and won the Stanley Cup with a torn shoulder. 2 full seasons with deep playoff runs, including the year he was the leading goal scorer on our championship team. So playing through like literally a structural injury in his shoulder that required surgery, not just like a strain or something. That's crazy, right? So Tulsky had a quote, which I'm going to read, and he laid this timeline out. He said, so Tulsky said, shoulders are tough. Once it goes, you can keep aggravating it and limit what you can do. Eventually, it needs to be repaired. You can strengthen it and try to get through it, and he did that for a while. Last year, we had a deep run. If we had missed the playoffs last year, he probably would have had it this last summer, I would guess. But we had a deep run, and he started looking at the timeline and didn't want to miss a big chunk of the next season, the championship run. Then we got to this year and had another deep run. And at some point, you just need to do it. You can't be limited the rest of your career. Crazy. Tulsky saying that Jarvis was planning to get surgery last summer, but the Hurricanes made a deep playoff run in 2024, 2025 that went all the way till May, right? So surgery in late May with 4 to 6 month recovery would have meant he would have missed the start of this season or some chunk of it. So Jarvis started looking at the timeline, decided he didn't want to miss a big chunk of this season, and just kept playing with a torn shoulder. Then he had the best year of his career, 32 regular season goals. That was the team lead. He made Team Canada. He scored overtime winners in the playoffs. He won the Stanley Cup on a shoulder that was supposed to be in a sling. So let's actually think about what that means as a competitor. Most NHL players, or any sport probably, you can't compete with a torn labrum. It's what holds your shoulder joints in place. So if it tears, you lose. Anybody who's had a shoulder injury knows you lose stability in your shoulder. I mean, he's shooting the puck. Basic motions are harder, right? It changes all of your motions. Anything that requires your arm over your head, wrist shot, slap shot, it's all a battle. The rotator cuff is the group of muscles and tendons that stabilize your arm. You know, when that's torn, you're not just dealing with pain, you're dealing with like reduced power, range of motion, constant risk of like hurting or even dislocating it or something, right? So that's the injury that Jarvis was managing while leading the Hurricanes in goals. Every battle along the boards, every check he absorbed, every face off, it's crazy. And all that happened, the fact that all this happened with a torn shoulder that he was actively delaying surgery on so he could be on the ice. So this guy was leading a championship team in goals while needing major surgery. That is freaking the definition of a warrior on the ice. And here's what makes it even more incredible. He didn't just play hurt. He produced the highest level of his career while playing hurt. 32 regular season goals was a personal best. He hit career marks in points. He made Canada's roster for international play. He scored the overtime winner in game 4 of the Cup final. The injury didn't slow him down. He just figured out how to be elite anyway. So that tells you something about who Seth Jarvis is. We all love him. We saw him with his helmet on, partying after the Cup win. He's awesome. Most guys would shut it down. They would have missed half the season. They would have underperformed even if they tried to fight through. But Jarvis still led us. Brendan Moore has talked about the culture in Carolina being about doing whatever it takes for the team. Jarvis just gave the entire NHL basically a masterclass in what that means. So now we get to the part that matters going forward, and we have to think about what this means for the next season. So the timeline is 4 to 6 months. Best case scenario, Jarvis is back in late October. Worst case, late December. Tulsky said he's hoping for the shorter end. Obviously, we all are. But I also want him to heal because here's the thing. After 2 years of playing on a torn shoulder, the comeback isn't just about healing. It's like he's going to come back with motion and strength he hasn't had since 2023. When he comes back, he could be better than what we saw on a Stanley winning Cup team, and he'll be playing at full strength. If that doesn't terrify the rest of the NHL, I don't know what will. It's also interesting what's going to happen with Jarvis out this year. Tulsky also said there's a very real chance that we end up with an open slot in the lineup for a couple months early in the season, see what some of our young guys can do, right? Who's going to come up? We've got some picks that could stand out. Maybe Bradley Nadeau. I don't know. He was an AHL All-Star last year. All right. He got a couple call-ups, I think, last season, but this could be a real opportunity for somebody like him, somebody else. I don't know what we're going to do. But Jarvis being out for a couple of months, might be a hidden gift for the organization. We get to evaluate somebody else in the role, see who belongs, see if they're useful in some other role player role after Jarvis comes back, and then we get Jarvis back at full strength. Hurricanes are going to get the best version of him that we haven't seen in years with all this more experience under his belt. So look, we've lived through a Stanley Cup run, celebrated, did the parade, watched Stahl lift the cup. The entire time, the guy leading our team in goals was playing on a shoulder that had structural damage and needed surgery. That detail should not get lost, right? The grind that nobody's talking about consistently, the pain that nobody's seeing of these athletes, the choice to put your entire team above your own body for 2 straight years. Jarvis didn't just help win the cup. He helped us win it the hard way, right? The way that us Caniacs should be talking about for the next 20 years. So when it comes back this fall, this winter, when he's not on the ice yet, remember what he did. Remember what that's going to be like when he gets back, okay? Because that's what this team is built on. It's the guys who decide they're going to do whatever it takes. That's what this team culture is. Even when nobody knows and nobody in the media is talking about what they're actually going through. Seth Jarvis is a Hurricane through and through. So what do you think? Jarvis, he's a real one, right? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Let's celebrate this dude. All right. And if you're a Caniac, come on, subscribe to my channel. We'll catch you in the next one.